Okay, so I think actually we'll start our webinar this morning. My name is Sheila Gilheany. I'm from Alcohol Action Ireland, and this webinar is the first of our series of events this week around what we call End the Silence. So End the Silence is an initiative which Alcohol Action Ireland has been organising through Silent Voices. And Silent Voices aims to raise awareness of the issues that arise for children growing up in homes that have been impacted by alcohol harm. Right now here in Ireland, we know that at least 1 in 6 children are living with that trauma, and that's a trauma that can have a legacy right on into, into adulthood. Actually, we had some research from Maynooth University a few years ago, which would have pointed to the fact that there's about a quarter of the adult population in Ireland grew up with this experience. So what we're aiming to do this week is to draw attention to different aspects of issues that can arise. And what we're going to be opening with today is to be talking about, I suppose, the power of early intervention. That although we know that this is a very difficult and it can be a very painful and traumatic experience for children, that there are things that can be done. And one of the most important things is making sure that somebody somewhere is that the child is on the radar of somebody somewhere. And as part of that, actually, our first speaker, Siri Haugland, is going to talk a little bit more about, how important that is. We're going to also have speakers from the UK who are going to talk about Operation Encompass, which is a very practical example of how we can bring about that support. Following our two main speakers, then we'll open it up to our panel discussion, who are going to really say, well, do you know something, what are the other issues, what are the other things that could be done? And very particularly we'd be thinking about, where schools come into play in this regard, and how best we could make our schools trauma informed and to ensure that we have the support for children there. So I'm very pleased at this point to be handing over to our chair this morning, Ailbhe Smyth. Ailbhe is well known to many of you who would be joining this morning. She's a long-term interest in issues around women, but also in terms of, I suppose, her own activism and her own roles that she's had with many different organisations in this capacity. But something that people maybe wouldn't also know is that she's also a patron of Silent Voices, and it's in that respect that she's joining us today. And I'm so grateful, Ailbhe, for your steady presence and your support that you've been giving to this initiative, because you bring yourself and your own experience work with other organisations across alcohol issues, across violence issues, and I think there's a kind of a melding of things that would come. So Ailbhe, maybe I'll just hand over to you for the moment, and I'll let you introduce our first speaker then. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sheila, and good morning, everybody. You're all very welcome. I have to say that I am very pleased and also honoured to be a patron of Silent Voices. I was one of those young people, and at that time, there were no interventions. We didn't even know how to talk about it. So it is so good to see these wonderful developments, changes, research and programmes. I am delighted to introduce our first speaker, who is Professor Siri Haugland, who is going to be talking to us about growing up with alcohol harm at home, the difference a trusted adult can make. Siri is a professor of psychosocial health at the University of Agder in Norway. She's a trained social worker with a PhD in community medicine. Her research focuses on how parental alcohol use affects children's psychosocial health, including risks of marginalisation, adverse child experiences, and intergenerational patterns of alcohol abuse. Currently, she's head of the Department of Psychosocial Health and the deputy leader of the research group Substance Use, Family and Close Relations. You're very welcome, Siri. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you very much for that. Welcome. Well, I think I'll start with sharing my presentation. Hopefully that works fine, as we tested it just some minutes ago. Let me just share. Yeah. So, is this working now? You'll let me know if not. Well, Thank you very much. It's so nice to attend this seminar that really addresses a topic that I find really important. We have been interested in this topic for a long time within the university, but also from my time as doing social work and public health work in the communities. I found that practitioners were observing the importance of family and the conditions that the children grow up in. So I hope you all understand me during this presentation, as I'm not an English native speaker, but hopefully at least the slides are in some kind of English, so hopefully you'll understand me. So I'm going to talk about growing up with alcohol harm at home and the difference a trusted adult can make. In my research, I've had particular focus on alcohol's harm to others, but I've also been very interested in how alcohol harm is not necessarily just about alcohol dependence or families where somebody has alcohol dependence, but also the harm that can happen more episodically when parents are drunk. Because in Norway, I don't know, maybe there are some similarities to Ireland, but Norwegians, they don't drink that much during week, but when they first drink, they tend to drink a lot, or at least being drunk is not that uncommon, not even for parents. So a lot of children end up being exposed to drunk adults, and even though they are not dependent, it might turn out to be harmful for the children, some of them at least. So let me see. Today I'll use material from two different projects. The main project that I will address is from the adverse childhood experience and health-related outcomes in a general population. Then we use data from a large public health survey in Agder. But I also want to use some examples from another project that is more qualitative, which is called Message Received: Chat Stories from Children and Adolescents Affected by Parental Alcohol Use. This is a project that we are working on currently. There is an organization in Norway that has had a chat service for children that grow up in families affected by substance use. And we have been gaining access to those chat logs and are currently looking into how young people under the age of 18 describe their experiences. So I just want to add some examples from that material as well. So international studies have estimated that, I'm sorry, you're in. I just have to move something. The prevalence of children with parents who have alcohol problems ranges from 4% to 29%. And this is the primary reason for this broad range is that parental alcohol problems are defined differently. Some studies are based on self-report, for example, from children or parents, and some are based on surveys or psychiatric interviews or registry data. So that's really, although it differs a bit from country to country, how many children or percentage that might be affected, it's a lot to do with how you map that. But in the southern region where I work, we have asked people, the adults in this general population survey, whether they grew up with parental alcohol problems. So in our region, it's 15.6%. So one out of 6. So it's really comparable to the numbers you mentioned in the start of this seminar. So it's quite many children that are affected, and if you add the more episodic intoxication episodes where parents are really drunk when children are present, the numbers of course increase. the consequences of parental excessive drinking may be acute. Of course, it might be something that happens during the drinking. It might be accidents or injuries due to violence, for example, neglect. That is very acute, that happens during the time when the children are small or teenagers. But some of the consequences may develop over time through more subtle and complex processes. And this, for example, we have been interested in social disconnection or lack of social interaction or connections when you're an adult. When we think about what shapes a person's life, it's easy to focus on what's happening right now. But we can really see that what happens early in life, even in childhood, can have an effect throughout adulthood as well. So in this particular presentation, I will focus on social disconnection in adulthood. We could talk about health, we could talk about mental health or other issues, but let's narrow it down this time to social disconnection and the role of parental alcohol problems and access to trusted adult during childhood. So why focus on social disconnection? Well, a recent report from the World Health Organization focused on loneliness and social disconnection. And social disconnection are now considered a major global public health challenge. So between 2014 and 23, 1 out of 6 people worldwide reported being lonely. And the WHO highlights that loneliness increases the risk of dying early, and about 871,000 deaths every year have been linked to loneliness. And social disconnection also raises the risk of heart disease, stroke, depression, and anxiety. And of course, beyond health, it can make life more difficult, affecting both school and university and work and social life, of course. So that's why it's in a public health perspective, it's interesting to look into what kind of factors that impact the development of social disconnection. And I really focus on this in Norway, that substance use and as particularly alcohol use is a part of public health, the public health world. And sometimes I think they focus too much on physical activity and nutrition. And sometimes they forget substance use, and especially the third part, harm to others aspect of substance use. So that's why I think it's important to connect our field into the public health world as well. And thank you, WHO, for highlighting that as well. So this is a quote. All these quotes are from teenagers that grew up with parental alcohol problems, and all of them have also been exposed to violence or abuse. So it's all the quotes that I will give today. But this is one of the quotes. I didn't go to school trip last time in August because he didn't have money. I was going to a friend's birthday on Friday, a class party, and we kind of have something going on. But when I got there and gave her the gift, the most unbelievable thing happened. Her dad came to the door and told me to go home because my dad uses drugs and he didn't want his daughter to hang out with someone like that. So what could increase the risk of adult social disconnection among those who grew up with parental alcohol problems? Well, of course, as the example shows, that stigma and exclusion from social arenas may be one of the things that make it difficult to make friendship, to participate in social relationship, to be included, because there are discrimination or stigma that keeps them out, like this young boy told about. And some of the families that are affected by alcohol use may have some various kinds of what you can call resource deficiencies. Some of them are related to economy, given by the example I started with. That may make it difficult for the young people to participate, for example, in sports or trips or other opportunities where other young people are. Maybe they don't have money for the bus to go to practice, for example. Maybe the parents don't have a car or other, and it can also be related to in a way interest in following up that part as well. So some of the young people may lack opportunities to participate. We have found in some other studies that if you ask those who grew up with parental alcohol problems if they have a trusted adult they could go to, then it's more common in this group to lack that. There are more people in the group that grew up with parental alcohol use that say that they didn't have anyone to go to if they were in trouble, if they were worried. They didn't have anyone, any trusted adult at all. So the lack of social support might already start during childhood. So these are processes that in a way can develop. Some of the families, they move around, and they change school. Often I have a good friend that grew up with alcohol use and alcohol problems in the home, and she moved 25 times the first 25 years of her life. So she really got experience in changing schools and starting over with friends. But this also is a challenge that can both bring out, of course, social skills. I think that some of these kids develop really excellent social skills in terms of starting over and making it work. But also, of course, it's a burden to all the time have to start over and know people and be included. It takes time to build social relationships. Some of these children also experience role reversal. So they have to stay home and maybe clean. A lot of the children in the chat stories talk about how they do housework and how they have to clean after the parents had a party, for example, and take care of siblings and do the shopping. And that might, of course, both in terms of time, make it difficult to have a social life when you grow up. But also they are talking about that they are tired. They are so tired with all the work. So that may, of course, also affect the possibilities. And some of course, when you grow up with adverse childhood experiences, some of them experience violence and abuse. The risk of mental health problems, of course, is an issue. And many of the participants in our studies report that they struggle with hard memories from the childhood related to abuse and neglect. So that's, of course, something that adds to the difficulties. Other studies, when you not just look at parental alcohol use, but adverse childhood experiences, we can see a reduced education attainment and attainment to employment. And it's not difficult to understand. If you have been awake all night, taking care of your parents, getting them to bed, or protecting your mom, or just keeping them company, or worrying, being in bed and worrying, then it's not that surprising that it's difficult to also have a focus on school. So there are some researchers, Backman and Nielsen, that studied different kinds of difficulties early in life, like, for example, growing up with a family with few resources and social problems. And they found that children who face challenges at home often have fewer opportunities, like through these processes that I have described. And that these early disadvantages can follow them well into midlife. But it doesn't happen all at once. It's more kind of building up over time, like more like it's a cumulative disadvantage. It adds up in a way, pile up over time and develop over time. So which makes it likely. We haven't had the possibility to study this in the study that I'm referring to, but this builds on other types of studies that describes the type of challenges that children may experience in this kind of life situation. Okay. So what research also have found is that social support can buffer negative life experiences. There are several studies showing that, which is a good thing. It really has potential. But then we really have to be aware that children who grow up with parental alcohol problems are more likely to lack access of social support or trusted adults. So paying attention to this aspect as a preventive or a buffer factor or a resilient strengthening factor is especially important when we're talking about this group. So in our study, we wanted to look at whether adult support during childhood could reduce the risk of social disconnectedness among those who experience parental alcohol problems. We wanted to see, if you grow up with parental alcohol problems, are you more likely to experience social disconnection in adulthood? And we had 6 questions measuring the parental alcohol problems, and we had 6 different kinds of measures related to social disconnection, as you can see listed in the slide here. So we looked into, we compared those who had parental alcohol problems, but also lacked adult support, compared to those who had support and didn't have parental alcohol problems, or those without these kind of challenges. And we also compared those who had parental alcohol problems. I'm sorry, this is complicated. You'll see it in the next graph, I'll promise you. But did have adult support, to see if they came out differently, to see if adult support played a role. Okay, I think I'll move on to the slide. It's easier to explore, to describe. There are over 23,000 participants aged 18 or older, randomly selected from the population. So this is really not a clinical population, it's from the general population, but the clinical population is, of course, hopefully some of them are there as well. And it's self-report, all of this. So the blue line that you can see, it represents those who didn't have support from another trusted adult. And the orange line represents those who did have another adult supporting them. And both of these groups experience parental alcohol problems. And the statistics here is that if the line is over 1, then there is a difference. Then they have more social disconnection than those who didn't have any of these problems when they were young. And along the horizontal axis, you see different aspects of social disconnection. The first 2 are about actual participation in social activities, organized or not, like, for example, joining teams or clubs or organizations. And the others are more subjective measures, whether they feel excluded, lonely, or lacking social support in adulthood. So what this graph shows is that young people who grew up with parental alcohol problems and did not have adult support are more likely to experience social disconnection as adults. They participate less in social activities, and they are far more likely to feel excluded, isolated, or like they don't have someone to turn to or social support. Those who grew up in the same situation but did have support are still more likely to experience social disconnection, but the risk is lowered for this group, as you can see. As you can see, the more subjective measures of social disconnection is a stronger effect on those kinds. Okay, I hope you did understand. The point here is having adult support during childhood makes a difference. It makes a difference also, and you can see the traces of that in adulthood as well. So those who had a trusted adult, although they had a slightly increased risk of social disconnection, they had a much better outcome than those who lacked adult support during childhood. So that's the kind of main message from this graph. So what is the adult support that we are talking about in childhood? Well, we didn't specify that in this study, but I really wanted to bring out some of the descriptions that the teenagers that are chatting in the chat log study, who they are describing as either someone they have talked to about the difficulties at home, or someone they might picture themselves disclose something about difficulties at home. And it's sometimes really beautiful just to read how someone are paying attention out there and around these children and doing what could be seen as very small things in a way, small gestures that seems to make a difference for the children, and building trust and making it possible to share something about what's going on at home, or at least thinking about that. So I'll just wrap up this presentation with some of the quotes from that. There's a teacher I really like. I always feel safe when she smiles, and I wanted to talk to her lots of times, but I was too shy. Just think about that, just a smile. It's something about the attention and the friendliness that's inviting for the children. And it's not just not public services or school or health service or something. So this is a dialogue. Do you have something someone at school you trust? I'm not really sure. No, it's not always that easy. Maybe my handball coach. He's nice. Yeah, that sounds good. What makes him nice? He's really kind to everyone, and he doesn't get angry if you make a mistake. That sounds like a really kind person. Could you tell him how things are at home? I don't really know what to say, what I'd say. What do you want him to know then? Maybe that sometimes dad isn't very kind when he's been drinking. Do any of your classmates or teachers know that your dad gets angry when he drinks alcohol? Only my teacher. That's really good that you have told the teacher. Yeah, she's very nice to me. In the winter, she even let me help take care of her horse because she has one. So I could get a little break from being at home. This is an example of a teacher that really stretches the room for friendliness, for caring, and for the students beyond the classroom in a way. So it's actually see several examples of that. But also friends and their family are potential support. I wrote to my friend that there was trouble at home and I asked if I could come overnight. My dad is texting me back now. You damn brat, you don't understand what it's like for me. If you ruin things for me now, I'll ruin you. Now I'm just crying. And then after a while, he describes in the chat. Okay, now my friend is coming down the road on his bike. I can't stop crying, so embarrassing. He just stopped his bike in front of me and is asking what happened to my eye. He says it's all bruised. I think I just have to tell him. He says his dad is a doctor at the hospital and can take a look at me. Maybe it will turn out okay then. This is really touching, I think. And an example of his friend's dad. I think maybe this is the same family. I'm not sure. He also knows because he came by once when Dad was completely drunk and rescued me, so I could stay at his place. Then he contacted Child Protection, and that's why they know something. I'm allowed to come here when things are difficult at home. And this is the last quote, but this is from a boy that's 8 years old. I try to do my best when mom drinks, but it's not so easy. I cry a lot. I often talk with the lady next door. She's nice to me, gives me juice and cookies. I think about it all the time, and the neighbor lady said that she's going to talk to child services and try to make it so that I can live there in foster care. I want to live with her. I get to sit on her lap, and I think finally someone really cares about me. She makes me feel like I'm worth something. So I think I'll end with it takes a village. With this, I mean that I don't think we can solve everything through public services. We need warmer communities. We need to build a culture where it's okay to care about the neighbor, care about the neighbor child, care about the children at school or in the sports arena, that we are building a culture where we are attentive and where it's allowed to do things that make these children feel seen and cared for. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much indeed, Siri, for that really fascinating presentation. And I mean, it really does show the very significant difference that adult support actually makes to young people, and the very touching and moving comments which you gathered from the young people themselves. For that, I'm going to move on to our panel discussion, which will in fact focus on the importance of trauma-informed school support. And I'm also going to ask our panelists to keep an eye on the time, please, as we do want to have time for some questions at the end. So I'll turn now to our first panelist to introduce our first panelist, who is Detective Superintendent Kerry Brennan. Kerry serves with the PSNI, the Police Service of Northern Ireland, within the Public Protection Branch. She leads teams responsible for domestic abuse, rape, crime, and adult safeguarding investigations. Very big job, Kerry. With over 2 decades of policing experience, she's obviously dedicated so much of her career to protecting the most vulnerable in our society. And she's been truly a leading voice in promoting child safeguarding, online safety, and responsible information sharing between statutory agencies and community partners. So I hope, Kerry, that you might talk to us more about how Operation Encompass works in the North.
I'm probably very fortunate that Elizabeth gave such a detailed, thorough presentation on it. And that's pretty much kind of like our model, but I'll speak a little bit about how that actually plays out in the Northern Ireland context. So within our police service in Northern Ireland, we really seen just the absolute gap that existed in this space. And obviously we were able to get a legislative change. So we embarked in this journey with a pilot in a really small area in September 2021. Within our service, we have like individual like safeguarding like hubs that exist in each of our kind of like police and command areas. So we began the pilot obviously in one of them, and we started to see that it was like really, really successful. So we were able to roll the scheme out over a number of years, and come May 23, it was basically operational across 1,162 schools, and also education other than school centres in Northern Ireland. To date, when we did a review of this, come the end of 2024, we have made over 23,000 referrals to police in relation to Open Compass. We are just in the process of collating, our figures for this incoming year. What we would say is that we, on average of a month, get about 740 referrals that we're making. It forms a phone call from these hubs to the safeguarding lead in the school. And that in itself has brought real benefits to us, around like the sharing of information and building relationships. Our target at that time was to make all of the calls in line with how it is in England and Wales, Wales before 9 a.m. Sometimes we don't always achieve that. However, in 85% of the cases, that we do. So what we are now focusing on for the future is that we're in the process of actually working towards like an IT fix so that we can have more of an automated, process. And again, that's something that we will deal with in a kind of a pilot way in order to, test it, because we don't want the quality of that information, to drop. An evaluation took place in Northern Ireland, and it was our Education Authority who basically led on that. And that was around linking in with all the safeguarding leads or the designated teachers in each of the school, and getting their feedback. And it was actually quite overwhelmingly positive, where basically 85% of them responded so positively about the performance of the PSNI in this area, just about the difference that it made to them, like as a teacher. And there's some really powerful kind of testimony, like within that, pertaining to children. So as a whole, we're really, really proud of this work, and we're really looking forward to developing it, like in the future, to make sure that, children are really supported in this space in the best way that they can. And I know Elizabeth talked about, the training that they provide, and it's just having that trauma-informed approach is just like so important. So yeah, we're really proud that we have this, and that the Police Service of Northern Ireland have led the way.
So thank you very much, Kerry. That was, I think, very clear and very interesting to hear about the progress and the process in the North. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. I will move on now to Aine Costello, who is the National Coordinator for the Childhood Domestic Abuse Project in Barnardos. And Aine will highlight the organisation's work in the area of children and domestic violence. And she's going to particularly emphasise the voices of children and young people involved in the Empower Kids project. Aine, Barnardos already working in schools, so obviously we would look forward to hearing you talk a bit more about that work. And I think you have a short animation as
Yes.
well. My fingers are crossed that technology will stand by us. Thanks, Aine.
Thanks, Ailbhe, and I'm hoping to. I'm in a very blustery, storm, yellow weather warning at the moment, so I hope my tech plays ball for it. So thanks very much, Ailbhe. So at Barnardos, it's great to be here at the presentation today and hear all about Operation Encompass. We're long fans of the project Operation Encompass, and it would formed part of our submission to the Third National Strategy a number of years ago. Across Barnardos, childhood domestic abuse touches every single project that we offer, whether it's a busy family support project, an early years targeted service, whether it's a TLC Kids intervention for domestic abuse project, whether it's the bereavement service. So domestic violence and abuse touches all aspects of our work at Barnardos. We know the importance of that multi-agency response is so important, and Elizabeth really well highlighted that in her presentation, and that no one agency has a full picture for what is happening in a child. And I felt the morning's presentations tied really well together with Siri, and that graph was really, really impactful to show the importance of that one good adult. And that's certainly what the children and young people who live with domestic violence and abuse tell us all the time, that they want to be seen and heard and supported at school. We've been doing a lot of work, I suppose, in Barnardos around the voice of the child related to domestic violence and abuse. And I'm going to start off maybe by talking about that by playing our animation, Hear Me, See Me, Keep Me Safe. So many of you may have seen that today, but for those of you who haven't, I just want to give a little warning. It is looking at domestic violence and abuse through the eyes of the child, and it is hard hitting. So just if anybody, we don't know the prevalence of children in Ireland, but we can guess kind of similar studies in the UK have put it at 1 in 4, 1 in 5. So we are talking about a high percentage of families affected, and 1 in 3 women as well in Ireland. So I'm going to start off by showing this, and I'm going to really direct, I suppose, your attention before I play it to the role at schools. So when we made this a number of years ago, children and young people around Ireland were very involved in making this with us. What jumped off the pages in the initial consultation was the role that schools play in the lives of children and young people living with domestic abuse. For many children, they felt it was their safe place, somewhere they had to go, and they felt supported by their teachers. And for many other children, they felt that they needed to be seen, they needed to be supported more, or that they find it hard to concentrate on day-to-day basis due to their experiences at home. So naturally, schools featured a strong role in this animation. And I just want to draw your attention to one or two scenes in it. The backpack, I think, was mentioned by Elizabeth, and I thought it was a very good analogy. It also features in the animation of the backpack of anxiety and worries that they carry with them all day. And we didn't have a lazy animator in the creation of this. In fact, when we asked the young people and children to describe how they think the school scene should look to them, and I feel I always need to draw your attention to it, because you could miss such an important detail. When we asked the young people, how should school look like in this animation? What do you think we can represent it for the children and young in this video? And what they mentioned was that they were walking down the corridors every day in school, and they can't see anybody. Everybody is blurred, blacked out, or everybody's quite blurred. Or they're sitting in the school, in the class, and all they can think of is what's happening at home, and they're being asked to concentrate on their schoolwork or why they haven't got their homework done. So I just wanted to draw that very purposeful animation, purposeful scenes that are in the animation that describe how children feel at school every day here in Ireland. So fingers crossed our tech all goes according to plan here. So I'm going to, sorry, I cancelled myself out there. Okay, hopefully that's all good to go. Can everybody see a white screen, hopefully?
Yes.
Yes.
When I'm with Mammy and Ailbhe, I want to draw a rainbow all around us to keep us happy. But Daddy gets angry. I get scared. I wish he would stop because I don't want anyone to get hurt. Ailbhe tries to protect me, but I wish I was far away from all the fighting and the noise.
But sometimes it's like a deathly silence, and the atmosphere takes over the home and seeps into every pore. I want to protect Sean in a way that I never had been, to take him upstairs, away from it all, and make him safe. But when he gets angry, you just freeze, You accept that it's going to happen, and you have no control. You feel invisible, and that feeling follows us all day. When we go to school, it has a really big effect on us.
I try to blend in, but I still think about all the fighting and hating. I wish I was able to tell my friends or the teacher, but I can't because I'm scared, and they don't know what's happening in my family. Is this normal?
I worry all the time. I worry about what might happen to Mum. Is she okay now? I worry that me or Sean might get hurt. And I worry about Mum getting upset if Dad does do something to us. It's too much responsibility, and it can be totally overwhelming. I'd like to be noticed more. Sometimes I might look okay, but really I'm hurting. And I show my teacher my mask, so I can disappear behind it.
The Gardaí come to our house sometimes. When that happens, I feel like they need to get him in trouble for being bad. I want the fighting and hating to stop.
I wish I could have done something to stop it. I wish he accepted that he needs help. I wish he could see that he is at fault. I wish he could put himself in our shoes. I try to keep Sean safe in our room, and we talk about the things we wish for. We wish that people would be kind to us, because we feel the pain too. We carry the feelings in our hearts.
We want people to listen to us and believe what we say.
We want people to tell us it's not our fault, and we want to be asked about what happens next, because that affects us a lot. Most of all, we want you to see us, hear us,
and keep us safe.
So yeah, so that is a very powerful video that demonstrates what children are saying when it comes to domestic violence and abuse. Oh, sorry, YouTube can sometimes play the next video. So what I wanted to also, I suppose, maybe talk about today is that we are doing at Barnardos at the National Child Domestic Abuse Project, working with schools collaboratively is on our agenda all the time. At 16 Days of Action last year, we brought children, young people to the Department of Justice, and they met with an education table there. They met with many different tables, but one of which was an education table, which contains the national leads for the Irish Principal Networks across primary, secondary school and the NCCA. And a lot of the messages that they had at that time for the schools table was very much like what you see in that video. So please be kind to us, see us, believe us. They also called out for training for staff in schools because they feel at times they're unseen or unsupported, that they need that one good adult that Siri spoke about. And we actually have a virtual campaign for this year's 16 days, and we have our youth advisory panel, our childhood domestic abuse youth advisory panel met last week, and they put together a list of tips that they wanted their school to know, or things they wanted their school to know. And again, many of those things that you've seen there is see us, it's not our fault. Be curious that this may happen for any family or child that's in the classroom. So we are doing a lot of work in this space, and we would support that Operational Compass in part of Ireland, and it's great to see it get past the first stage of the legislation that needs to happen.
Thank you very much, Anya. And
Thanks,
I must say that's a really very effective and very touching animation, very powerful in its impact. I wish that people would be kind to us. It's just I think it picks up on what really both Siri and David and Elizabeth have been talking about with us this morning, and the need for one good adult and programs in our schools. So thank you very much. And I'll pass straight away. Remember, to those present, you can still put your questions and comments in, but I'll move on straight away to Professor Catriona O'Toole. Catriona is a chartered psychologist, and she's the Associate Professor of Psychology in Education at Maynooth. Her work focuses on whole school well-being, trauma-informed practice, educational inclusion, and very importantly, of course, school attendance. She's an experienced educator, practitioner, and internationally award-winning author, and is widely recognised for bridging research and practice to create meaningful change in education. She also happens to be a board member of Action Ireland. You're very welcome. Thank you for being with us this morning, Catriona. And I'm hoping that you will talk to us about the importance of trauma-informed education and the need, of course, for training, for resources, and especially just at the present time, it's very pertinent for a national framework.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ailbhe, so much for the lovely welcome. And thanks to all our speakers as well, who've just, I feel very, just that was a poignant video on you. Just, I suppose, listening to Siri, to Elizabeth, to Aine, to Kerry, there's the kind of there's a shift, isn't there? I think there's the shift on happening, and it's given me a little bit of hope. It's heartening, but I do think, yeah, there's still more to do, and I think that certainly is around creating the foundation within our schools, within our settings, in which trauma-informed practice is kind of it can flourish, and in which Operation Encompass, something like that, then can be embedded and can work effectively. I think without that kind of foundational level training and understanding of trauma and how it manifests and what children need in school, I think we're kind of on the back foot. So I've been working in that area for a number of years, and I suppose just promoting and advocating through, doing different research projects. But I might share my screen actually, and just hopefully that will work. Yeah. Hopefully you can see my screen there now. So as part of a project that I was engaged with, just let me know if you can see my screen, because it's not showing up
I
for
just don't
me.
see your screen at the moment, Catriona.
Sorry, Sheila?
No.
I don't see the screen.
No, okay, let me try again then. There, that should be better, I hope.
Yes.
Yeah, super. So as part of some work that I've been engaged with, and this, I suppose, website that has very much come about as a result of a project that I worked with Sheila and the team in Alcohol Action Ireland. So we were really, this project was around raising awareness of both the prevalence and the impact of trauma, but also around trauma-informed practice, and I suppose what schools can do to support children and young people. So we know that schools are so, the one good adult, the safe space where children can be safe, seen, supported. But we also know the flip side of that, hopefully that school is that space for children and young people, and a lot of children and young people will tell us that it is. But equally, there are children who find that school is a place of further harm or for further trauma. And so I do think we've a lot of work to do in this space. So over the last little while, I suppose I've been developing a framework for trauma-informed practice. So I'll just maybe enlarge it here, because I have a kind of a little graphic to illustrate. So at the very foundation, and it's represented, I suppose, in these three concentric series of concentric circles there. But with and so the inner circle represents very much the practice level. So at individual level, so in our interactions with children, and you can see there the trauma-informed practice is represented as kind of a flower, and at the center of the flower there is compassion. And so just picking up on kind of Siri's comment, we need more caring communities, we need kindness, what the children were saying in Aine's presentation. we need, you know, and also what came through, smiles and kindness, and a teacher who doesn't get angry, or, you know, the all of the things that we were hearing from children this morning. So compassion, I suppose, is a way. What we know is that it's a way that we can turn and hold children when they are struggling, or when they may be distressed, or when they're upset, or when they're dysregulated. But equally, compassion we can turn towards ourselves, and this is really so important. The other side of it is teacher well-being and support, and so that because compassion and compassion satisfaction is a real antidote to compassion fatigue, and we know that that can happen for teachers and members of other, you know, caring professionals as well. So we have to look after our staff, and one of the ways that we can do that is through a compassionate oriented approach, with supervision and support for staff as well as directly for the children. So then around the petals there, the petals represent the trauma-informed principles that are well known. So safety rather than threat, trustworthiness and transparency rather than betrayal, collaboration and mutuality rather than coercion. So all of the things that trauma imposes on a child, we're trying to create the conditions, the settings that offer the opposite of that. Peer support, solidarity instead of isolation. And again, we heard Siri talking about the importance of friendships. Choice, voice, and empowerment rather than oppression or shame and silence, and cultural humility and respect for diversity. So that's all at practice level. And we have reflective practice in there because it's really important for kind of teachers and staff to reflect on and to navigate and to notice and what's going on for them, their own triggers, because we all have them, right? We have biases and stereotypes and things that trigger us, and we need to be able to kind of understand and respond to that. So that's trauma-informed practice at the practice level. But we want to go broader than that, right? We want kind of our settings, our school settings, to be trauma-informed. And that means kind of an organizational level, whole school approach, where we have a continuum of support that Elizabeth referenced. So the universal, the targeted, and the specialist kind of support. So a whole school continuum of support. This requires systems thinking. It requires leadership. It requires a principal buy-in. And at an organizational level, I suppose we're recognizing, as you know, this is very much represented in the wellbeing framework as well, that there are 4 core aspects maybe of school policy and practice: curriculum and pedagogy, policy and procedures, relationships and partnerships, school culture, climate, and ethos. So trauma-informed practice at organizational level is about really embedding and infusing the principles, those principles in the centre, into all aspects of what happens in school life. I refer to this as, you know, wave 2 trauma-informed practice, because we've had wave 1, I suppose. Wave 1 is really the translation of adverse childhood experience study, the findings of the ACE study, into kind of trauma-informed practice. And there have been criticisms of that, in the sense that it puts the responsibility of the child to kind of for their own healing. It's very individualistic and maybe a little bit decontextualized. So wave 2, what we want in wave 2 trauma-informed practice is that we connect trauma-informed practice with wider school improvement efforts. So with wider kind of things that are going on, such as equality and inclusion and diversity in schools, with culturally responsive education, with children's rights in education. So the trauma-informed practice isn't a standalone, but is very much embedded within all of these frameworks. And then I suppose within this framework is just recognizing at the bottom, well, there are wider factors influencing and kind of barriers, I suppose, that we're up against when we want to think about really impacting trauma-informed or embedding trauma-informed practice in schools. So there's often a tension, and there's competing interests, and there's culture of, you know, neoliberal policy, whether it be academics and performativity culture in schools, that, you know, the compassion and the recognition of what's going on for a child, they may come into conflict. So it's also about acknowledging those conflicts, and the wider impacts, the wider factors that may make it difficult for school staff to enact trauma-informed practices and policies. It's recognizing also at the bottom that it's a journey, and journeys are circuitous, and sometimes we're going in one way and we're going down. So it's recognizing that it's not a linear process. It's a journey, and that it's no particular end sight either, in terms of, so we're moving towards being trauma aware, to trauma sensitive, trauma responsive, etc. And it's recognizing that there are barriers, but equally there are facilitators, like strong leadership, coherent thinking, like basic foundational kind of professional development for staff, and that's across all staff, our receptionists as well as our school teachers and our principals and so forth. So I might leave it there because I'm conscious of time, but and stop sharing. But this is just to say that lots of work going on, but I do think we need that kind of added kind of policy push. There are trainings happening. It still feels to me that it's quite fragmented and piecemeal, and we need something kind of a little bit more coherent.
Thank you very much, Catriona. That was very thoughtful, and I think sets out the kind of work that needs to be done in a very, very clear way. And I have to say that this has been a tremendous series of presentations, one after the other. I know that there are a number of questions and comments for all of you as speakers and panelists. So I'm going to pass straight away over to Sheila again.
The other queries that, you know, we're coming up again at that idea of asking about, you know, connecting to different services. One of the things that we have been highlighting is, you know, what are the policy measures that can be put into place for children who are impacted by alcohol. And we certainly would say that we think there's a need for a named person at government level to take ownership of this, because what is so clear is that you need buy-in from multiple different departments. You know, we've got good work happening, say, in schools, and you can have good work happening in addiction services and, you know, many other elements of government services, but being able to draw them together. And I think there is a need, as I say, for a named person within government who could take ownership, if you like, of that, and ensuring that those things are pulled together. So that's, I'll just maybe end on that as a particular issue that we would be raising. And I think there was also a query from some people there, what can we do, what more can we do? And I would always say, talk to your elected representatives. There's nothing more powerful than speaking to your TDs and saying, what are the kind of things that you see can be done. You'll see on our website, Alcohol Ireland, that we would have a number of different campaigns, for example, on Operation Compass, but also others as well. And I really would invite you, you know, perhaps to use the service that we have there of being able to contact your TDs. So I think we're just coming up, we said we'd finish up at about 12:45. We're just a few minutes over that at this stage. I really want to thank everybody who has contributed you know, to our event this morning. Ailbhe did a fantastic job in keeping us on time, regardless of the technical difficulties that we had there. So thank you so much indeed. Our presenters, each and every one of you, have just, you know, kind of given us a different dimension of some of these elements that come up in this complex area. I want to thank our own Alcohol Action Ireland staff, Conor and Owen, who behind the scenes have been doing a huge amount of work on this. I really want to thank our Silent Voices advisory group, because they are the people who really keep us going and keep highlighting the need to kind of draw attention to the issues and draw attention to solutions, you know, that are out there, you know, both nationally and internationally. So it really makes a difference. Can I say that this was just the first of a number of events that we have on this week. Our next one is tomorrow, which is all about ending the omerta, which are breaking the omerta that we talk about when it comes to alcohol issues. And then on Saturday we have a very special event coming up with contributor Corey Casey, and Corey's going to be talking about, I suppose, just for those of us who are in the adult side and who are dealing with the legacy of having grown up with that, and her talk is breaking free from survival, is more kind of like a workshop sort of thing. So I'd invite you maybe just to explore on our website and sign up for those. Thank you again for all that you've contributed today, and thank you so much for the very generous time both of our contributors and indeed our attendees, who have been really kind of feeding the interest in this. So I'll leave it there for this morning. Thank you.